What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this I'm going to break down what's going on with the overall market, what you should be watching for going forward. I'm going to talk about SPY, Tesla, the QQQ, Nvda, Apple, and many other tickers, and break down what the technicals are suggesting. I want to talk about Jerome Powell and what he may cause for the markets, and how the markets may respond to him both speaking and after he is done talking for tomorrow. Before I break anything down about all this information, though, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm firstly not a financial planner, so make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And finally, don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. Deposit $100 and you're guaranteed 5 free stocks with a $100 cash reward. Once again, there are only 3 days left. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Looking at the market, we had a very interesting day. SPY was up 1.1%. Tesla was up about 3.8%. The QQQ was up as well. And overall, the market is holding up quite nicely. But the real question is, will the market continue to hold up, or will the market see more volatility because of Jerome Powell? And I will discuss that in just a couple of minutes. First, let's look at the heat map. You can see right here that technology services did lead the way alongside electronic technology. We had Microsoft and Meta and Apple leading the way for the market to continue to pump, especially Apple hitting new all-time highs. For the finance sector, it was very mixed, but we did see most banks actually green, like Wells Fargo and even like Bank of America. And many of them were very flat, not really leading the way. For retail trade, it was basically the same. We saw Amazon up as well. And besides that, most of the tickers out there were quite green. Energy was kind of flat, but we saw the consumer discretionaries once again looking very, very nice. So overall, most sectors out there are quite green. The market is holding up nicely, and tech led the way again. You can see the headlines are already coming out saying that the tech sector was leading the way. And this was after some very decent economic data involving home prices and the current consumer confidence. We can see right here, Americans are feeling confident about the economy even after the Fed's signals of more and more rate hikes, but Americans are still once again optimistic, and the market really loved this response. Now, just for tomorrow, I want to remind you guys about something important, okay? So all this data came out for today, the housing data, which is pretty decent. It's still showing strength in the housing market. It's not really getting a big pullback. House prices are still going up. Consumer confidence is high. New home sales are still going up. The real question is, where is the housing correction, which a lot of people are probably wondering. And we may see Powell ask these questions tomorrow. But what's going on for tomorrow? The answer is Powell is going to be speaking again. So just when we thought Powell is going to disappear and be done with his speeches, the guy is going to appear again and give even more speeches. He's going to be at an economic forum for CNBC with many other big speakers and many economists. Unfortunately, I mean, I really don't want this guy to be speaking of any time, really, and he's going to be back. So he's going to be speaking when the market opens at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. The market's going to be responding to this, okay? And when this guy talks, the market tends to move. I want to warn you guys that this guy has been a lot more hawkish as of recently, and this has caused the market to pull back, especially last week. Now, I don't know if he's going to try to, rain on the party again. There's no guarantee he will. It could be a nothing burger, or he could say some hawkish things. I don't really know. So I'm just going to sit this one out and just be patient nonetheless. But always be careful when this guy speaks. You don't know what he's going to say. If he says some hawkish things, the market could slow down. Some headlines are coming out saying that Jerome Powell promised a housing market reset, but is it actually happening? They're talking about how it has not happened so far. But the thing to remember is that the rate hikes have a very, very lagging effect on the economy. It takes a while for us to see the true effects of them. It may take almost a year, maybe a year and a half. So we may not really see the effects of them until we get closer to like 2024, if not in 2024. Okay, so it's going to take a while. It's best for us to just be very patient. And for now, I mean, Powell could still address this and say some things the market doesn't like. I have a warning for you, so just be very careful when all of that comes out. But other than that, the market is still holding up nicely. Now, let me just also add that Powell is not just speaking once. Tomorrow, when the market opens, he's going to be giving a speech, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. And then after that, we have some oil data. Nothing too big is going to be coming out. When he's done speaking, the market should improve. But then I want to remind everyone that he's going to be giving another speech. Powell is going to be giving another speech at 11:30 p.m. Pacific time, which is going to be 2:30 a.m. Eastern time for Thursday. So he's going to be speaking again Thursday morning, depending on where you are around the world. And that may affect how the market moves during the open or for even parts of Thursday. So Jerome Powell is going to be all over the markets again. I can't wait to see what he has to say. Can't wait to hear him. And it's going to be very interesting, all right? Just do the best, guys. Watch this carefully and just be ready for it. Now, anyways, let's talk about something else that's interesting. Before I talk about the charts, just to remind you guys, we have Jefferies reporting earnings very, very soon. For tomorrow, we have General Mills, Micron, and BlackBerry. For Thursday, we have Nike, Rite Aid, and just a couple of others, and nothing else that's too big except for Nike for the week. Now, let's talk about the charts. What on earth is going on? So right over here, I have my SPY charts, and you can see SPY got a very nice breakout of this falling wedge. I warned you guys in the morning that if SPY broke above that 433 level, that would be some nice confirmation. And it had a lot of potential to push to about this 435 level. If it broke this, then 436 could come. It ended up getting very close to 437, so it went even higher than expected. Getting a very bullish breakout out of this falling wedge, still holding up nicely. And there's a second gap up here, which it could be getting to very soon. But before it gets there, there's a chance it may pull back a bit because of Jerome Powell and then start squeezing later on. If that's the case, just be patient and wait for it to play out. And then we're just going to wait and see what happens with Powell first. But after Powell is done speaking, things could improve. For my Tesla charts, we had this formation. Trying to keep the charts as simple as possible. Tesla broke the neckline from the head and shoulders at this 247 area, right? We talked about this in the morning. It broke above it, and it actually got above where this wedge was. Now, could we redraw this? I could try to redraw this to see if we truly broke it. Depending on how you redraw it, I mean, you could argue we broke it, maybe we didn't, but either way, it doesn't matter at this point, because what matters is, could we hold above 250? 250 tends to be strong resistance. If we continue to break above this and we break out of it, it's going to be a bullish signal for Tesla. However, Tesla could also slow down with Powell speaking and then push up a lot later on. But I do want to note that I'm very bullish on Tesla as we approach Friday. As we approach Friday close during the open hours. So I'm not talking about like the after hours or anything like that, just for clarification. I think Tesla's going to pump a lot more once we approach Friday because deliveries is going to be announced soon, and there tends to be a lot of excitement. So that's just basically my broad picture of Tesla and SPY. Now let's talk about my more like specific details and levels to watch for, because this is better for like scalping and more intraday updates for tomorrow. So for tomorrow, okay, SPY is currently a little bit red in the after hours. It's down about 30 cents, but nothing too significant. We might see SPY slow down a bit tomorrow because of Powell speaking. If it does slow down, you're going to be watching support at this like 435 flat area, 435.25 to 435 flat. Watch support around there. If that fails us, watch the 50 EMA on the 4-hour time frame at this 434 area. If that fails us, watch 433. Those are all supports. I don't see it dropping that low unless Powell says something very bad. I don't know what Powell's going to say. So just be careful, guys, because Powell, he moves the markets like crazy. And then when Powell is done speaking, I think the market may start to improve and start pushing up a little bit. I don't know exactly where we're going to be, but we're going to be watching these support and resistance levels. If the market continues to hold up regardless of Powell, there's a good chance we're going to be testing 436.64 to 436.25, the entire resistance zone. If it gets above that and manages to break the high of the day, it's going to likely try to make its way closer to the 437 plus area, potentially at 438, 439, which is where the gap happens to be that's unfilled. Then we have 440 and then 442 and etc. Right? But here's what I want to note about SPY. Like I was saying earlier, right? We have that unfilled gap all the way up to this like 439 area. You can see it right over here in the pre-market. 439 has a gap. It's going to likely make its way up there, in my opinion, this week. Before we get to 439, I think this thing may cool off first because of Powell and then pump a lot more later. That's a possibility, but always be open-minded just in case, because we don't know what Powell is going to say. So watch support and resistance. I'm anticipating maybe a cool off first and maybe another pump later on over the next few days. But just to be safe, be careful when Powell is speaking. I can't really predict that. I don't know what he's going to say, so just be careful. For Tesla, okay, this thing right here is at the 50 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. Tesla could reject off of this when Powell speaks. It's just a possibility. If it does retrace a bit, watch 247.5 as support. If that fails, this entire 247 zone is where the neckline was of the head and shoulders. That's our support now. It tends to be strong support. If that breaks, watch the mid 240s, then 242 afterwards. I don't think Tesla's going to drop that low unless we get very bad news, but I believe it may come a little closer to like 247 or so, maybe a little lower when Powell speaks, and then it might get a very nice bounce when Powell is done and retest 250, maybe even break it soon. And regardless of what happens with Powell, I believe Tesla's going to pump as we approach the later days of the week, as we approach Thursday/Friday, especially on Friday. I think Tesla's going to push all the way back up well above the 260s, probably get closer to 270 plus. That's where I'm leaning. But I just wanted to note, excuse me, sorry guys. I just wanted to note this just so that everyone is well aware of all of this. On top of this, when you look at AMD is looking pretty decent. If it breaks above the 200 EMA, this thing has the potential to push all the way back up to this 112.5 area, then potentially all the way up to 114.8 if it breaks above the 200. It may cool off first and retest like 108 because of Powell and then get a bounce. That's what I'm leaning towards. If it breaks down, watch 108, 107, and 105 as support. It may cool off first because of Powell and then bounce, but we'll have to wait and see just to be safe. NIO had some bullish news because of a big partnership with a major Chinese company, the third largest company in China. You can see NIO is up 11% because of it. It may retrace because of Powell and retest 9.21, but I do expect some of this momentum to remain tomorrow and for NIO to hold up pretty well. I don't see it like crashing immediately. I think it's going to try to continue to hold, and it could actually bounce off 9.21 and continue pushing. If it breaks 9.5, we could see 9.7 to 9.8. If it breaks that, watch 10 plus, and NIO could continue going. Netflix is looking pretty decent, continuing to hold these levels. If it breaks below 415, watch support around this 411.5 to 410 area. If it breaks upwards, watch 420 as resistance to 422.06. Break above all of those, and we can see 425 and 430.96 all the way up there as resistance. I think it may cool off because of Powell and potentially bounce intraday, but like I said before, even though the odds favor that, we just have to be open-minded just to be safe. For the QQQ, this thing may cool off a bit and retest like 361.77, just a little bit. I could see that happening because of Powell. I just don't know what he's going to say, but I'm saying that because historically the market has cooled off when this guy spoke. He has been very hawkish as of recent, so there's a good chance it may happen. But then we may establish a bottom and then start pumping even more and retest 364.5 and potentially break all the way up to 366 to 368. So maybe a cool off when Powell speaks, then a bounce intraday. And eventually, I think later on over the next few days, we could see the QQQ make its way up to 366 plus. For something else out there like SPX, this thing is holding up nicely, actually bounced so far and has this gap all the way up here around the 4,400 area. It may cool off with Powell and then start pumping later on, but I think it's going to try to go for that gap fill very soon. For the dollar index, this thing is a little bit red. It's working as normal. As this thing is red, the market tends to be green. That is normal. If you look at the VIX, this thing came down to fill its gap, but notice how it didn't fully fill its gap just yet. Maybe the VIX bounces a little bit. Maybe it retests 14. Then this thing starts selling off to fill the gap, and this thing starts dropping more, and the market may pump, causing that to happen, basically. Now, the SQQQ was looking bullish yesterday, but this thing got a big rejection and started, dropping down, breaking below the 50. So now the question is, could this thing be forming like a head and shoulders? Because we have a potential left shoulder ahead that could be forming. Maybe it gets a bounce tomorrow because the market cools off with Powell. Then it ends up just continuing to slide as the market pumps more, especially because of Tesla pumping the NASDAQ and the triple Qs. Tesla's going to be a big runner for the week. Mark my words. It may cool off tomorrow a bit because of Powell, but I think Tesla has a lot of potential that could pump the market. So watch Tesla. It's my play for the week. For Coinbase, this thing broke above resistance at 66. The next level is going to be this 72 area. And if it breaks above that, it's going to basically make its way up to about 75. But specifically, it's not 72. It's like 71.8. I think Coinbase has the potential to push all the way up there. It's still looking bullish. Looks very nice. It may cool off because of Powell and retest 66, but if it bounces off that, could continue going. Got a very, very nice setup. Still looks quite good. For Alibaba, I don't usually trade this guy, so I do apologize that I don't always talk about it. There's a potential bullish divergence here, nice accumulation. It could be forming a head and shoulder, an inverse head and shoulders. Sorry about that. An inverse head and shoulders, which is bullish. That's what I'm seeing on it. It's looking quite nice. It could get a retracement tomorrow with Powell speaking, a slight retracement all the way down to this 86 zone. Then it may try to bounce and start pumping later on. There's also this other important zone around this 88 area. I was eyeing that in the past. I'm anticipating a slight cool off, the potential bounce. It could make its way up to 88 later on. So maybe it comes down to like 86, tries to bounce, makes its way up to 88 plus, then it starts slowly uptrending as time goes on. That's a real possibility. How it opens depends on Powell, but when Powell is done speaking, the market may continue to keep going. If you look at Aapl, new all-time high on Aapl. Apple's looking strong as usual. Aapl has been developing a bearish divergence, but there's not any sign whatsoever of this playing out. It's still breaking to new highs, so I'm not really worried about it just yet. If Aapl breaks to the upside, we're going to be watching this 188.5 zone right here. If it keeps going, we could see 190. If it breaks down, watch 187.5 as support, then 186.5. Actually, we have 187.32, then 186.5 as support. Very, very tight supports as Aapl has strength. And then below 186.5 comes 186, then 185. So what I think is going to happen is we may cool off on Aapl because of Jerome Powell. The guy does, slow the market down typically. Maybe it cools off a bit, then bounces off 187.5, then pushes for 188.5. It could even break a new all-time high over the next few days again. It looks good, but I do think there might be a cool off with Powell speaking. For Nvda, this thing is on the 4-hour time frame looking a little bit more bullish. We have this imbalance right over here around this 424, almost 425 area. May cool off with Powell, come all the way back down to like 411 or so, just a little bit, then try to bounce and start pushing up again, and it could make its way all the way up to about this 425 area. I am leaning a little bit more bullish on it. On the 4-hour time frame, it's looking a lot better. We're about to get a crossover on the MACD, and there's a lot of potential for it to do this, get a nice bounce, but the way we open is going to depend a lot on Powell. So it really depends on what the guy says. Now, Google, in my eyes, is not looking that great. It actually broke below the 200 EMA, came all the way down to 117. So I told you guys yesterday that if we rejected off here, watch 117 on Google. That's where Google went to 116.91, very, very close. Now it's below. It's still looking kind of weak. If you want to turn bullish, watch it get above the 200 EMA, above 119.29. That's going to be a bullish signal. It needs to hold above this. If it rejects off here, it's still looking a little weak. It could come all the way back down to 117 or potentially even the 115s. So watch this very carefully. It's looking a little bit weaker. May slow down with Powell, but it could bounce with the market intraday. And if it gets above this 119 level, it has the potential to push up to 122 plus. For Amazon, I told you in my video from yesterday, we'd likely test the 50 EMA. And if it bounced, it could keep going. If it broke below it, that would be a bearish signal. But we needed to wait for confirmation. And what happened? We came very close. We actually were just a few pennies away from it. This was supposed to be at around like 126.7 is where the 50 was. We actually bounced off 127.1, so like 40 cents away. Very, very close. I was eyeing a bounce here. It ended up just going a little bit higher. I think it bounced off something else. But anyways, Amazon came down, got a really nice bounce, and this thing ended up holding up today. With Powell speaking, we could come down and get a retest or come very close to it again. It may cool off just a little bit, drop all the way down to this like 127.5 to 128 area. Then it could get a bounce intraday with Powell finishing his speech, and then this thing could start pumping to about this 130 area. If that breaks, watch 131.5, potentially 123.5. I'm sorry, 132.5. And overall, it would still look pretty decent. Still, it's holding up nicely. There's nothing too bad about it. For Meta, we were basically stuck in some very interesting territory. Yesterday, I told you guys Meta was very close to where the 50 was. If it got above it, it could turn bullish. If it got below it, it could turn a lot more bearish. And you could see we pushed above it. In the morning, I told you that I predicted Meta would pump all the way up to at least 285, and if that broke, it could keep going. It was looking more bullish, but we needed some confirmation. Now we got some confirmation, but the thing about Meta is it didn't break the major resistance just yet. So here's what I'm seeing, okay? If it breaks 290, that's very bullish. It's going to start pushing towards 300. If it breaks 290, that's going to be your confirmation. If it rejects off the current level, it's going to come all the way back down to like 285.57, which is where the 5 EMA is. If that breaks, it's going to make its way down to like 282 and potentially 280. What do I think it's going to do? I think it may cool off because of Powell and retest 285, maybe a little bit lower. Then it may get a bounce. Depending on the news and etc., the market may bounce after Powell, and we could see Meta make its way back up to 287 or so. And if Meta keeps pumping, right, if it keeps going, if it breaks this 290, it has a lot of potential to keep going. Notice how on the 4-hour time frame, this thing was just continuing to hold up, continuing to just pump and pump. It's continuing to hold above it, and we got the test again, and it ended up breaking after getting a bounce. We got a nice breakout afterwards. So it's still looking decent. There's no true sign of weakness, and I think there's a lot of potential in Meta moving forward. But anyways, guys, I want to keep this video kind of shorter than usual. Thank you all so much for listening. Powell's going to be speaking. The market may slow down a bit. At least the odds favor that. Not a guarantee. It's just a possibility. It's a little bit more likely because of how hawkish he has been. and then it may improve its price action after he's done speaking. And once Powell is done speaking, the market may hold up a lot better and things will improve big time in my opinion. That's just my opinion. Please watch support and resistance to always be safe. And please note that you have to be very patient in the market like this, especially tomorrow when Powell is speaking. Thank you for listening. I'll see you guys in the next one. Market to the moon as the long term is very bright, and peace out.